Welcome to the Real Paranormal Stories podcast with your host, Christopher Buckner. Send your stories to realparanormalstoriespodcast@gmail.com. Royalty-free music provided by Kevin MacLeod and Tabletop Audio. And now, let's take a trip into the paranormal. This story comes from a Reddit user who wanted to remain anonymous. And this is their story. I grew up in a 2-storied house my parents built in the middle of an apple orchard in New Zealand. Other than a few workers who lived on the orchard, there was nothing around besides my parents' business, a catery and kennels right beside the house. My parents would get up early and go to work, leaving me and my siblings in the house alone. One morning, I got up at about 7 a.m. and went to the living room downstairs, and I sat with the family dog, a very loving, huge Rottweiler, on the couch. I was too tired to turn the TV on, so I was sitting there in dead silence, knowing my mom would get back from work any minute. I sat facing forwards, but to my right were glass double doors that opened to a deck that wrapped from one side of the house to the other. I watched outside because I heard the sound of my mom's gumboots on the decking from the direction of the catery. It sounded identical to her footsteps. As I was watching and waiting for my mom to come into view, my dog woke up and started growling. Before I even had time to question why she was growling, a see-through woman walks into view. She was completely transparent, exactly like the ghosts you see in old photos, wearing a long dress. My dog saw her too, as she growled even louder when the woman came into sight. The woman was looking forwards at first, but turned and stared directly at me before vanishing into thin air. She would have been 2 meters away from where I sat. I remember being so scared that I physically could not move. I just stared, as my whole body was paralyzed with fear. Even writing about it now gives me goosebumps. I don't know why, but I didn't tell my mom about this until recently. I'm 26 now and still think about it often. My mom wasn't surprised at all when I told her, and said she also saw things at the house, as did my siblings. We moved out when I was about 8. I had other experiences in the house, but nothing else has ever compared to that. And that is their story. This story comes from Reddit user MutedNothing7346. And this is their story. This happened years ago when my sister and I lived in an old house. This house had a foyer when you come in the front door, and a bedroom to the left, and another bedroom to the right of the foyer. Past the bedroom to the right was the bathroom, and past the bedroom to the left was another bedroom, which was my bedroom. The bedroom to the right was my sister's bedroom. One night, my sister had invited our little cousin, who was about 6 years old, to spend the night with us. Her room had an old gas heater that she used often to heat her room. Since it was old, turning it off and on again was something that only adults who were familiar with it did. For example, the kids knew not to touch the heater, nor would they know how to work it if they tried. The same things go for her bedroom door lock. When she slept, she would always lock her door from the inside, using the original door lock that came with the house. The old kind that had a little switch that you would have to find and click to lock it. On this particular night, my sister and my little cousin were sleeping in her room with her door locked from the inside and that old heater on. The way her room was set up was, her bed was all the way to the far right wall. Then she had put a mattress on the floor for my cousin, which was in between the door and her bed. We all went to bed, and myself, I slept with my door open. About 2 a.m., I woke up and went to the restroom across the hall and past my sister's room. When I passed her room, I noticed her door was still closed. Then, I left the bathroom and got back into my bed. Just a minute later, I hear someone open my sister's door. I assumed it was my sister because I knew it wasn't me, so I didn't think anything about it, and I went back to sleep and didn't hear anything of note after that. Sometimes, when it got hot in her room from the heater, she would open the door and leave it open to get some air, which is exactly what I assumed she did that night. The next morning, when everyone got up, my sister asked me, "How did you get my door unlocked last night when you opened it?" I told her that I didn't open her door last night. She did. I heard her open it. She told me she hadn't opened it, but just woke up to her door open and her heater off. So she asked our little cousin how he figured out how to unlock the door and turn the heater off. And he told her that I, myself, had done it because he was awake when it happened and he knew it wasn't my sister, because she would have had to step noticeably on his mattress to get to the door to open it. He said he woke up when the door opened, but just figured it was me and went back to sleep. So it wasn't me, or my sister, or my little cousin who unlocked and opened the door and turned off the heater. So, who was it? We were the only ones in the house, and I slept with my door open, and I hadn't heard any footsteps or seen anyone else. Since it was an old house, you could hear every footstep that was made. We still don't know how it happened, but figured maybe someone or something was protecting them from overheating, or maybe carbon monoxide, since that was before we knew about the dangers of gas heaters. I'm not sure, but it was unexplainable to us. And that is their story. That's all for this episode of the Real Paranormal Stories podcast. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a review anywhere this podcast can be found.